Welcome to this week's Resilience by Default Deep Dive podcast. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely crucial explainer on critical third-party providers, or CTPPs. We're going to explore why relying on just a simple list of suppliers is, quite frankly, a dangerous game to play. And more importantly, we'll look at how you can completely transform your approach to third-party risk into a proactive, board-level strategy. This is essentially your blueprint for true embedded resilience.
Terry kicks things right off with a fundamental question, one that really challenges us to look way beyond a basic vendor list. We need to recognize that hidden, interconnected web that actually keeps your operations running day to day. It's a massive distinction, right? A supplier list basically just tells you who you pay, but a dependency ecosystem, that tells you who actually keeps your lights on. And look, if you don't know the difference between the two, your organization's ability to survive any kind of crisis is already severely compromised.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the hidden dependency ecosystem. Second, how global regulations are converging. Third, designing a stressed exit. Fourth, strategic substitutability and step-in rights. And finally, the resilience operating model.
Okay, section 1, the hidden dependency ecosystem. We're going to plunge right below the surface here to see what's really supporting your Tier 1 suppliers.
Terry establishes a really brilliant baseline rule for us here. Determining criticality requires mapping out your important business services to trace the exact components. Why? Because risk is entirely about the impact of failure. Honestly, it doesn't matter if your provider is some massive, globally renowned tech giant or just a tiny niche software firm. If their failure means your critical functions crash, well, then they are critical. You have to map this out meticulously to spot those single points of failure and those really dangerous hidden concentration risks.
Once you actually map all this out, organizations almost immediately discover that their true vulnerabilities lie deep in this nth-party ecosystem. We're talking cloud hyperscalers, offshore hubs, data centers, payment processors. Having operational access to these layers is absolutely vital for true resilience. Because, let's be real, disruption rarely starts with your primary contact. It usually kicks off 3 or 4 layers down, maybe a data center outage or an offshore hub suddenly going offline. If your contracts don't give you visibility into those deeper layers, you're essentially flying blind.
Moving on to Section 2, global regulations are converging. Let's see how this hidden risk escalates into a massively urgent board-level issue.
Regulators all across the globe are making it crystal clear right now. Executive boards are strictly accountable for the resilience of these providers. You absolutely cannot outsource your accountability. Think about it. If a critical provider fails and takes your services down with it, the regulator isn't going to point the finger at the provider. No way. They're going to point it directly at your executive board. And we're seeing these converging frameworks practically everywhere. They're demanding solid evidence of resilience, fully tested exit strategies, and total subcontractor transparency. They are transforming what used to just be best practice into absolutely mandatory supervisory expectations. Whether you're looking at DORA in Europe, FCA guidelines in the UK, or even emerging rules across South Africa and the Gulf, the message is identical. Regulators just don't want assumptions anymore. They want cold, hard evidence that you've got board-level oversight and tested plans ready to fire.
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, designing a stressed exit. This regulatory storm really highlights the need for the ultimate defensive mechanism.
Terry makes a super crucial distinction here. A stressed exit plan has to be a fully tested, resourced, and regulator-aligned operational capability, one that can actually keep you within your critical impact tolerances. It is not just a PDF sitting on a shared drive gathering digital dust somewhere. Seriously, if your plan isn't time-bound, trigger-based, and technically feasible in the real world, it's practically useless when a real crisis hits.
And this timeline perfectly illustrates why you just cannot wait for failure to happen. The brutal chronological reality of onboarding means that waiting guarantees you will breach your impact tolerances. Just look at these numbers for a second. 6 to 18 months just for due diligence. If you wait for your current provider to collapse before you even start looking for a replacement, your business services are going to be offline for months, maybe even years. True resilience requires having pre-qualified alternatives and technical pathways mapped out well in advance.
All right, Section 4, strategic substitutability and step-in. To actually survive those brutal timelines we just talked about, Terry introduces these 2 incredibly important concepts. So, the absolute crux of the issue is this. Holding step-in rights is merely a contractual illusion unless you actually possess the skilled resources and the runbooks to execute them. It's one thing to have your lawyers negotiate the legal right to take over a failing service. Great, right? But if you don't have senior operational staff fully trained on the tooling, plus clear governance pathways to actually run that service yourself, well, those legal rights on paper aren't going to save you. You must operationalize it to make it a true resilience control.
Now, what about those highly unique services that simply cannot be substituted? For those, Terry advises building strategic resilience directly around the dependency itself. You do this through enhanced continuous monitoring and running severe but plausible scenario testing. Let's face it, sometimes there really is no alternative supplier out there. When that's the case, you've got to wrap that dependency in heavy armor, so to speak. That means rigorous testing and ensuring your internal teams are constantly practicing operational workarounds as part of their BAU, or business as usual.
Finally, Section 5, the Resilience Operating Model. Let's pull all of these different threads together into one actionable blueprint for your organization.
Terry provides this comprehensive operating model to really help shift organizations away from reactive panic mode procurement and move them towards a proactive resilience discipline. It's all about taking these theories and turning them into a daily operational reality. The goal is to ensure that every single time a third party is engaged, resilience is just baked into the process from day one.
Following these 8 repeatable steps creates this fantastic closed-loop system. It ensures you're always testing controls, securing access, and, very importantly, keeping the board completely informed. You start by identifying what matters, you map it across all tiers, and you secure your rights to audit and exit. Then, crucially, you validate that exit strategy through scenario testing long before you ever need to use it. Remember, this isn't just some compliance checklist you dust off once a year. It has to be a continuous, living system.
To wrap up our explainer today, let's take a look at Terry's defining philosophy on navigating this whole complex ecosystem.
This quote is just such a powerful reminder. True resilience is all about preparation, not reaction. Consumers, regulators, and your board, they all expect you to manage your critical third parties with the exact same discipline that you apply to your own internal operations. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. If your most critical provider literally vanished tomorrow, are you truly exit ready? Or are you just holding on to a contractual illusion and hoping for the best?
Podcast released every Tuesday on Spotify and YouTube. Like, subscribe, and repost. It helps us build the channel and focus on what's important to you.
On Tuesday, 9th June, the Resilience Association has its 6th annual summit. This year's theme is Critical Third Parties, Strengthening the Backbone of Resilience. Terry will be there.